Very good afternoon, everyone. For and on behalf of ICMI Social Auditors Organization, I welcome you all in this webinar, which is on the topic Practical Insights regarding reporting framework for NPOs registered slash listed on social stock exchange. And as our today's speaker has also joined, Jyotsna Beliappa ma'am. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Welcome to this webinar being organized by ICMAI Social Auditors Organization. This is Dr. S.K. Gupta here, Chief Executive Officer of ICMAI SEO. I welcome the speaker of the day, Madam Jyotsna Beliappa, who is going to share her practical insights and real-life experience with regard to reporting and especially the process of conducting social impact assessment, which is mandatory for all organizations which are registered and listed on social stock exchange. As per SEBI guidelines, for all those organizations which are registered and listed on the social stock exchange as on 31st of March 2024, the last date for submission of social impact assessment report was 31st of January. Some of the organizations have submitted the report, but quite a few of them have not been able to comply with their deadline because of various reasons. So possibly we thought that this session could actually help out both the social auditors or the social impact assessors to understand the process that goes into the whole mechanics and architecture of conducting social impact assessment, and also for the NPO's perspective, what are the processes, how they should take it forward, what is the homework that they need to do. In order to talk about the practicalities of all these aspects, we have Madam Jyotsna here from Blue Sky Sustainable Solutions LLP, which is a social impact assessment firm registered with ICMAI SEO, and they have already completed social impact assessment of few of the NPOs which are registered and listed on social stock exchange, and the reports have also been filed within the due date before 31st of January. So we thought that possibly there can be no better person than Madam Jyotsna to talk about her experience and also share some insights, practical insights as to how to take the whole process forward in a seamless manner without much of obstacles and without much of constraints. So welcome and over to Madam Jyotsna. So I would request you to kindly take us through the reporting requirements as mandated by SEBI and social stock exchanges to begin with. And then what do you expect the NPOs to be doing about that in terms of their homework or the self-appraisal form which they have to fulfill? And subsequently, as the social impact assessor, how do you actually approach an assignment once you get into that? And what is the final culmination before you put your signatures on that particular report? So after your brief presentation, whatever you may have prepared, possibly the participants may also be asking you some questions, would like to interact with you. So we would request you to kindly make the session interactive with a view to providing experiential learning to the participants of today's program. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. And before I start, I must tell you that Dr. Gupta has been the leading light and the mentor. The fact that almost 25 of us are sitting here on a Monday afternoon talking about a concept of social stock exchange, I give Dr. Gupta a very
Thank you, madam.
huge...
Thank you.
It wouldn't have happened without him, I can assure you.
Thank
you. So I see that there are a lot of CAs, very interesting. I see some CMAs also, and I see a lot of people from the NPO. And I think, 6 months back, you wouldn't have really thought that the CAs and the cost accountants would be talking to an NPO, and why would I, a person who comes from ethical trade background, be sitting and talking to you? So it's the sign of the times. There's so much that has changed over the last 2 years that it's a huge learning curve, and I am glad to be here to be sharing the experience of the last 6 to 8 months. Just a brief introduction of myself, just in case you think that I come from I'm going to come and give a lot of gyan saying do this, do that. I just want to tell you that I also come with an NGO background. And of course, I joined the corporates later on. But the thing is, I come with both the perspectives of a for-profit organization and a not-for-profit organization. So feel free to ask questions, discuss, and let's make this very interactive. And just to let you know that we are all on this path of learning. We might be just about a month or two before you, but the idea is that it'll only be meaningful if all of us are working on this journey. And I'm sure there might be great ideas that you have. Feel free to um, point out or be a part of this discussion. So to start on, I have got a few PPTs, but I will definitely share that. But I thought let's keep the conversation going by
Yes.
with some interaction. So one of the first questions I want to ask, or one of the first foundational ideas that I want to be on the same plane with you is, what do you think CSR is? So, I mean, you want to write in the thing or you want to unmute yourself and Dr. Gupta, is it allowed to unmute
Yeah,
yourself?
sure, certainly, yes.
Yeah,
Everyone can interact with you. Yeah.
yeah, sure. So can I get one or two answers as to what is CSR? What is your definition of a CSR? Any language will do, so feel free to discuss. Yes.
Ma'am, good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
This is Suresh.
Suresh. Yeah.
So, CSR is basically the corporate social responsibility, as the acronym says, that in response to the society from which it is taking the resources, it has to give back.
Huh.
Though the corporates,
Okay.
in terms of
It's an obligation. Yeah.
yeah, obligation,
You said it's an obligation. That's fine, Shira.
from
Anybody
voluntary.
else? Yeah, we'll come back to you. You said obligations to the society. That's correct. That's partly correct, but there's more to it. Anybody else wants to try a definition of what a CSR is? Okay. Let me ask you another question. Is CSR defined in India? Is there a definition of CSR in India?
Yes.
Hi, I've met you before.
Yeah.
So tell me, is there a definition of CSR?
Yes, there is a definition which is given by the MCA, and it
Uh-huh.
looks at environmental, social, and something else, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
corporate having taken resources from the communities have to really give back to the society, and it also mandates in terms of what are the areas that they have to work on from.
But madam, tell me something. Is that a definition? It's more an instruction.
There's a
It's I'm talking about definition as a taxonomy.
I
So
don't.
to actually say both of you are right, it's an obligation to the society. But very honestly, CSR is not defined in India. There is a law, the Companies Act refers to CSR, and a CSR, but it tells you that so much of your 2% of your profit can be invested, blah, blah, blah. You can invest it in all these things and all that, but it's definitely not a definition.
Yeah.
Okay. So in India, and especially you as NPOs, will you actually have started the whole, while CSR is extremely acknowledged, the fact that it has to be philanthropic or the fact that it has to be a part of your accounting is something that is sort of emerging now. So in India, CSR has been very philanthropic. Yeah. It's something that you want to give back to the society, which is fair enough. But now we have moved into an era where the people who are being philanthropic, who are donating money, as well as the people receiving money, come under the ambit of an audit through the social stock exchange. Yeah. So most of the things that we are going to talk about today is focused on the social stock exchange. And I'm sure all of you are aware of the social stock exchange. Yeah. I
Can I
assume I'm
ask
taking for granted that all of you are aware of the social stock exchange.
Yeah. I just
Yes.
had a question. You said
Uh-huh.
that the SSC comes under the ambit of the CSR in terms of audits.
Yeah,
Is
the
there order for it?
no. I said that audits are one of the pillars of the social stock exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's why we are talking about we're talking about audits today, you know, like what has been our experience. So like Dr. Gupta said, and I'm aware that Ramesh ji is also here, one of the first companies which has been an absolute pioneer in making these laws work. Okay, so Ramesh ji is here, and Unnati is one of the first organizations which not only listed on the social stock exchange, they raised money, and we have worked closely with them to ensure that all their reports are submitted at the correct time. And there was a huge learning that we all had about the reports, the language of the reports, the expectation of the report before we could actually submit it. And I must also at this juncture credit Dr. Gupta to make this be the via media to the SEBI, BSE and NSE to take our suggestions on how these reports, what of the reports work and what of the reports don't work. Okay, so keeping that in context, I wanted to ask this group, what is what do you think social stock, what are the changes that you're seeing because of the fact that you want to list on a social stock exchange? What are your pain points? Can you come up with that? Any suggestions? What's so difficult about the forms and all that stuff? What has been your experience?
One of the things that we are hearing from the NGO space, because I work primarily with the NGO space, there's lack of information, there's a lack of knowledge on how each of the processes are handled within the whole process of this on the stocks, which
Yeah.
means that for example, I'll tell you, NGOs are not familiar on how the money will be actually be flowing to them, how the taxes are going to be made. How is the money that is really, how do they raise that money? Who are the people
Yeah,
that
the forms and all that stuff, the registering on the on the BSc and
not with
NSc.
registration. Registration is available on the website. But after that, what is
Okay. Yeah.
even
After that, what?
NGO?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not
good
available.
point raised. And I think our first experience with Unnati was actually sort of in reverse, in the sense we had, because there was a urgency of, submitting a certain, the form, the reports by a certain date, we worked backwards. Yeah, we worked with the forms and all that. But I think the next lot of people who will go on to the social stock exchange are lucky, because those forms and how to write those forms is now available with all, it's available in the public space. So what I wanted to ask you was, what is the difference? Okay, so we're going to go onto a stock exchange, and one of the most important aspects of the whole thing is an impact assessment report. Yeah, impact assessment report. Apart from Form 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 2C, and 3.1, there are almost 6 forms that you'll be filling. Yeah. So but the thing that is a report that has to be filed at a particular date is your impact assessment report. So my question to the group is, why do you think this impact assessment report is important? I'll come to all the details of 1A, 1B and all that, but I wanted to find out from this group as to why are we sitting here on a Monday afternoon discussing about the impact assessment report? Any volunteers with some answers?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah. First thing is about the return which the funder is expecting is the social impact. So that is the prompt that was given by the social enterprise.
Yeah.
Comes
So
to
the
see
return is being seen as an impact that you're making. The donor is not looking at getting a 10% return or a 15% return on his money, but the return he's very keen on is to see the impact that his money has made by your organization using it for a particular cause. That's great. Yeah. Okay. Then what else?
Ma'am, Kavita here.
Yeah. Hi, Kavita.
So, ma'am, I think one of the key thing here is to ensure
Huh.
accountability on part of the NGOs, like if they have raised funds from SSC, So
Uh,
there has to be some accountability on part of NGOs, and to, also to maintain transparency in terms with respect to the funds, that is, the funds, whatever funds are being raised for the
yeah,
activities that is mentioned. So
yeah.
there has to be a transparency that the funds are utilized for that
Very,
particular activity.
very correct. Very correct. Like, so I got three answers, and I think they're bang on answers. One is impact is necessary because that is a return that the donor is expecting. And impact assessments are necessary because there is an accountability and transparency for it. And now I want you to sort of take the same logic and see that when you invest money in a stock exchange, a BSE or an NSE, do you see the same level of, do you see how SEBI is so protective about your money by ensuring so many legal issues and so many security issues, so many risk issues? Do you see that when you're investing in a normal stock exchange? Yeah?
Yes.
That is the same expectation which is there in a social stock exchange. And the only difference is that in a BSE and NSE, your returns would be in terms of money. But now, when you're talking about the social stock exchange, your return is in terms of impact. You want to make a difference to this world, but you don't know how to do it. So you're going through your NGO partners, not for profit partners, to actually make the difference. Yeah. So why I said this was I wanted to put it in context, saying that the number of rules, the laws, the forms, the details, the accountability that is going in is with the same oversight that SEBI has over your finances. Yeah. Somebody is investing in your money, and hence it has to be what do you call accountable, transparent, and it has to be, it's something that has to be tangible. So one of the things that I come across is, we were doing a certain program about digital exposure to girls in rural areas. Okay, and one of the things that was written in the form was we want to give them digital exposure to increase their confidence. Okay, so how do you measure confidence? So if I put on my auditor hat and I say that I have to see whether this confidence has happened or not, how do I measure it? Any ideas? Any suggestions? How do you measure the confidence of the child?
Hello, this is
Yeah.
Bivas Chatterjee from Gram Niyojan Kendra, Ghaziabad. Actually, there
Ah,
should be some dummy indicators by which we can measure the confidence. Okay, suppose confidence he is
absolutely.
walking alone to the schools, he is attending regularly schools, doing he is interacting with the boys. So that
Yeah.
kind of dummy indicators we need to prepare in which we can
Absolutely.
evaluate.
You're very right. So while confidence, increasing confidence is a very subjective thing, one of the things that you will have to learn and what these forms, the various forms that we're going to discuss, what they require is tangible measurements. So, and remember one thing, that these tangible measurements could be available globally or in India, but it could also be something that you as an expert decide. Okay, so just to take Mr. Chatterjee's suggestion. So if I am going to measure the confidence of a girl by the fact that she returns, she returns or she can go in a bus alone to a certain thing. If I say that's my measure of an impact, that's fine. But these tangible measurements have to be included when as an MPO, when you are really looking to go to the market to raise funds, because your impact assessment, what we do is basically assess those key parameters. Yeah. So there are six forms. I was thinking about which forms to discuss, but there's one very important guidance note which has been given by SEBI, and I thought that is something that we should sort of discuss. Can I share my screen? Just a second. I'll just. So before I do that, because I know that it's a mixed group, um, are all of you familiar with the theory of change?
Yes. We are.
The NPO sector will be, but the
Yeah.
Anybody? Yeah, I get more yeses. So I assume that everybody knows about the theory of change. Yeah. Now, this theory of change, basically what we had learned was we get the objectives right. Yeah. We get the objectives right. Once we have the objective worded properly, we go on to the activities. And because of these activities, we have certain of what do you call outputs measured. Outputs, I always remember to say that these are the numbers. So if I am talking about an education program, I'm talking about the number of classes done, a number of what do you call trainers and all that stuff. So outputs, and then there's the outcome. Outcome is a result of these activities and output. An outcome is in the impact language is a short-term impact is called an outcome. A long-term impact is what we actually look at as impact assessment. So one of the first things I would like all the partners to know, NPO partners to know, that when you're talking about an outcome, you have to be realistic about short-term and long-term. So if since you are going to be submitting a report every year, remember that this is a short-term thing. So when you're going for funding, please remember to ask for ongoing fund, 1 + 3 years, so that you can break down the large long-term impact into yearly outcomes. Is that clear? Did I make myself clear here?
Yeah.
Would anybody want to repeat this? Repeat what I said about outcomes and impact? It's very important to understand this, because all your forms will be filled with the clarity of an outcome, which will add up to become an impact. Okay, so Siddharth says yes, clear. So we're going ahead with it. Okay, so what I was talking about was, yeah, one of the biggest changes, and this is looking at CSR or looking at social impact from a SEBI point of view. Remember, SEBI is an organization which rates the highest as accountability and transparency, is one of the biggest, highest ratings. They're most focused on that. And that is why the outcome has to be worded in such a way that it can be measured. Yeah. So from the NPO side, can I get some feedback on why is it difficult for the NGOs, NPOs to talk about impact in tangible terms, impact in numbers?
When you're working on your indicators, you normally have to work on a SMART framework. And because they have to be measurable, they have to be within a timeline, they have to be specific, they have to be achievable. So when you're looking at developing indicators, very often the understanding of how to break that indicator into an achievable part becomes difficult for a lot of people, and that has to be also evidence based.
Absolutely. And that, I think, that's the clarity that if you have, maybe, it might need some internal discussions also, but if you have that clarity, filling up the forms is not difficult at all. So for all the organizations, all the NPOs which are planning to planning to register or list themselves on the social stock exchange, one of the first things that this is our learning, and this session is all about sharing our learning, is I think internally and with the auditor, or internally just the leadership team has to break down the entire project in this theory of change. And the SEBI thing twisted the thing. Like for all of us who are from an NGO background, we used to basically start with the objective and then look at impact. But this organization twisted overturned the thing, and it talks first of impact and then breaks it down that for this impact, what are your key performance indicators? What are your outputs, outcome? And I want to share that document with you now. Yeah, so this is the document that you need to get most. This is the document that you need to chew the most. I'll just share that with you. Is this visible? Because now I can't see you.
Not yet visible.
It's
Okay,
not
so
visible.
uh, have you all seen this? I'm sure you've all seen this document.
Not visible
Name the
till
title
now.
of the document. Can you please name the title of the document?
Guiding framework on logic model for integrating theory of change in projects to be listed in social stock exchange.
Yeah, we have seen that. I've read that.
You've read that, okay? So to cut, has everybody read that? If you haven't, we will share this with you. This is one of the most important. This is the framework which you need to understand well. And the minute you get this done, getting onto the social stock exchange, getting an impact assessment done will be a cakewalk. Yeah. So this is where they have talked about bi-directional traceability matrix. Okay, even if you don't want to go into typical heavy words, I will come directly. So this is the most important thing that you said. The flow of activities in a project design based on the logic model emanates from the impact and not from output. So honestly, even at Blue Sky, we are an accredited inspection body for social impact. This was
मैडम ये दिख नहीं रहा मैडम, ये जो आप बता रहे हो दिख नहीं रहा।
दिख नहीं रहा। एक मिनट, I will.
I think it's better you share the link on the chat.
No, just a second. I will.
Okay.
Now it's showing?
Started showing.
Now
Yes,
it's showing.
Okay, now it's showing. Yeah, now it's showing. So if you can see this first sentence, it's basically called logic model, how it needs to be designed and used for the project, some do's and don'ts. And one of the biggest change that was for us is this thing, the flow of activities in a project design based on the logic model emanates from the impact and not from input. Yeah. So this is the thing that takes the most discussion. And very honestly, there's no right or there's no wrong in this. It's basically what you as an organization is the impact that you wanted to go at. So like just the example that I gave you. Now, this particular organization was doing digital literacy to increase the confidence of the organization. And it was it took us a lot of, discussion, and internally also the organization had to break down how many hours of digital literacy and what is the impact. They said impact is increasing the confidence of the girls. Now that's a very subjective impact. So we had to go through the whole thing as to impact is a confidence to go from point A to point B, confidence to go in the bus alone, confidence to participate in a sports program. So they had two elements. They had a digital element where they would do after school hours, they would do training on a digital tablet. And also they would encourage a lot of sports, because if you really see, girls in rural schools have absolutely no options for playing. So sports and this thing. So we basically said, we helped them break down the whole thing to say that confidence, like we would do 500 girls, 80 hours per 2 weeks of a digital exposure and participation in 3 games of her choice, which became easier to measure. Yeah. Rather than saying confidence. So they defined the confidence in their terms, and it's perfectly right. It's their program, their community, their idea. So you can do that. And this is where I found that a lot of people were, especially from the NPO sector that we've been talking, they feel that their definition of confidence has to be something that is given somewhere else, or that has to be, it depends on your program, and you can define the impact. Okay, so that's where it starts. So see how easy it becomes when you have said that the impact is increase in confidence, which is demonstrated by each student doing 80 hours of training on this thing, her participation in 3 sports. See, they really didn't talk about improvement in grades and all that, because there's so many other issues that could influence the amount of grades. So they said, this is what we're going to do. Of course, they had pre-assessment and post-assessment tests, which was, which sort of showed the indication that there was a lot of interest that was generated. Okay. And the second thing, this is very mature on SEBI, which says that it should not be used in a straitjacketed manner. This is what I was talking about. Like, you can't say that the Oxford Dictionary talks about confidence as blah, blah, blah. Fine, that is a definition, but you decide how you're demonstrating that subjective trait. Yeah. This is extremely important, that remember that you as an organization which is implementing the thing can identify the parameters on which you are going to account for the impact. Yeah. Any questions till now? Yeah. No? Okay. So I'm just going to go, please go through this. Feel free to bring this up for discussion at a later time with me or with Dr. Gupta. So this is another very important point. Please understand the difference between impact and outcome. And these are two very different things which you have to focus as to what you are going to say. So like I told you, impact is a long-term intended and unintended consequence of all inputs and activities. Okay. So when you're going into when you're going to list yourself on a stock exchange, there might be a larger impact. So you're talking about, training and improving the confidence of the girl in this rural area. But that confidence is going to come over a period of 1 or 2 years. So be clear about that this is the impact that we are looking at a long-term project of 5 years or 2 years or 3 years or whatever be your strategy be on. Yeah. And so this is very important. This depends upon the gestation period. So don't be one of the things that we learned over our experience on the social stock exchange forms that they're asking for. There is typically there is a tendency to write it in a very expansive, flowery language. And that is something that should be discouraged. Keep yourself to the facts. Nobody is expecting you to change the whole world in one go just because they're giving you the money. What they want to know is a realistic idea of the impact you're making. And impact takes a long time. So say that 2 years, 3 years. This is what we are going to take before we start seeing the change. But for this 1 year, I'm looking at this is going to be my outcome. Yeah. Yeah. So it very clearly says outcome can be achieved at different levels across the timeline of the project. So what you would be reporting, what SSE wants you to report is the period of time is 1 year. So the outcome of all the activities that you have done for that 1 year. Yeah. So typically there is also money involved. So there has to be a very strong accounting system that you people have within your thing. That's even before going to the social stock exchange, I think one of the first investments you need to look at is how do you account for it? What is the data, what is the IT platforms that you use for it? Because that is critical in the type of report or the data that you will bring up for an impact assessment. Yeah, because impact assessment is all about data, quite a bit of your data, because that's the only measurable or the tangible indicator of the changes that you're bringing in. That brings me to a point. Can somebody tell me what they think is the definition of impact? So I want to know if everybody is listening or they've gone off to get some chai. Any answers on what's the definition of impact? Anybody wants to say?
The change it brings down on the beneficiaries or on the target,
Yeah,
either
perfect. That's
positive or
exactly the answer. But in the CSR world, we always say that it's about the change, Sureshji. But the thing is, we talk about a delta change, a small change. Because in CSR, a small change is over a period of time becomes a big change. So impact in this language, in the language of the CSR, is basically the delta change which is brought out because of the activity that you have done or a decision that you have taken. Okay, so that is what so the delta change or the change, you have to talk about the change that you have brought about. And that's what we are looking at in an impact assessment. And nobody says that the change has to be drastic or, like world changing. These are the small changes, and it's perfectly okay that the changes are small as long as it is something that you plan for. Yeah. And that is why this thing also about intended and unintended consequences, if you see. So there is a tendency, we have been doing social impact for the last 5 years, and there is a tendency that let's not talk about unintended impacts. Yeah, like come on, like I don't want my report to have unintended impacts, but many mature organizations specifically call out for the unintended impacts, because when we as an auditing company tell them what are the unintended impacts, again, unintended impacts can be positive or negative. But most of the people don't want to hear about unintended negative impacts. But many mature organizations are now saying that maybe we won't publish the unintended negative impact, but tell us about it because it helps them change their program. Yeah. Like there was one, I must tell you about this particular case study. So there was this organization which a manufacturing assembly line operation, which was having in rural Rajasthan, and it doing very well. But they had this huge issue of attrition, especially during a particular agricultural season when the entire workforce would go back to the state that they came from. Because most of them were farmers, but they would come to earn their money in this thing. And whenever the sowing season came, they would all go back. And it used to literally cripple the factory. So one of the things they decided was that let's take women into the workforce, yeah, the women in the villages and all that stuff. And they set themselves a target. When I was involved with them, the number of women working in their organization was maybe 3 to 5%. And they set up a target that over the next 3 years, we'll take at least 20-25%. And they actually reached it over the next 3 years. Okay, and that was also a very patriarchal community with a lot of women having parda and all that stuff. But they made all the arrangements, and there was a huge response. They worked with the panchayat, they worked, and they reached their target of about 20-25% of the workforce being women. Everything was good. And at that time, the card payment had started, the bank transfers had started. So they were very clear about the money and getting and all that stuff. But beyond a 25% level, in spite of doing anything and everything, it didn't go up. And they noticed another thing, that there was a huge amount of absenteeism, not attrition, but absenteeism of these women. And, more than 1 year, they tried a lot of things and all that. But then they basically asked a social organization to actually look into it. And to cut the long story short, what had happened was that because the women were working well, I mean, women were getting the money home. They were, they knew how to manage money, and they were getting the amount of alcoholism had gone up. Yeah, because the men had more money because they were literally handling the debit card and all that stuff. There was a lot of alcoholism. There was a lot of domestic violence, because of which there was a lot of absenteeism. So that's what I mean to say, that while the intended consequence was to increase the workforce, ensure that the women get minimum wages, equality, inclusion, so many things they checked on the right, on all the good topics. But there was unintended consequences also, which they needed to acknowledge before making the changes in the program. And they made some very lovely changes in the program, in the sense they introduced helpline numbers, and they would have, like there is a tendency in India that whatever we do in development programs, we mainly concentrate on the women. Yeah, women SHGs and all, but they also got the men involved, which really helped the situation. So this is what I meant by unintended consequences. And there is a huge maturity in acknowledging that, because that makes once you acknowledge and tweak your program, it makes your program, the potential impact, much stronger. Okay. So if you, when you go through this document, you'll see its impact. You have to word your impact properly first, and outcome. See, there's one more word beyond impact, that is sustainability. Okay, so I have invested in a particular program for 5 years, and you know what? I'm sort of done with investing in this area. What happens to the project? Does it collapse? So these are discussions that definitely need to happen. So, this was mainly, this is very important. So we used to always start with this region, remember? But actually now SEBI requires you to do it from the long-term impact, short-term impact. What are the outcomes? What are the output? What are the activities? Which of these outcomes, what are the activities that we are doing? Short output, input, and pre-project activities. This is a brilliant thing. It took some time to really recast our programs with this logic. But once you do that, it's a one-time effort in the way you think. And doing that, it really makes a lot of difference. Impact assessment is a very simple consequence once you get this layout right. Okay. Yeah. So I'll stop sharing and how do I stop sharing? Yeah. Any views on this till now? Do you think it's something that you knew about this, or is it something that you're already practicing?
At least from my side, yes.
You're already practicing this.
I have.
Yeah. No, I think most NPOs understand impact, and the way you explained it, the way SEBI has explained it, I thought it was the other way around. I mean, it was the auditors who took more time. It was the financial
See,
sector.
financial is very important because when you raise money on the SEBI, on social stock exchange, all this is being done for the money that you've raised.
Yeah, no, not. I have no doubts on that. Absolute transparency. I was just telling that it was the auditors and the others who had some problem understanding impact. Because for the NPOs, impact has always been
So,
that has been the
no,
has been
I understand. Sir, I totally understand with what you're saying. Now I'm putting on my auditor hat. Yeah, I'm putting on my auditor hat. And as an auditor hat, I can tell you that many of these times, even for very big NGOs, there's so much of subjectivity when they're talking about an impact. Improving the standard of living. Now, what do you mean by the standard of living? Yeah. So that level of impact, the understanding the impact language, the NPOs might be knowing it, and I'm sure there's a genuine change. But I think the change in the perspective that you need to look at now as wanting to go onto the NPO is you have to talk the language of money or language of, you have to be, it is to be an accountable language. It cannot be a subjective language.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're right. I mean, I agree entirely. I mean, breaking down those abstract long-term outcomes into some very definable metrics.
Yeah, like standard of living. Fine, standard of living can be an umbrella term. But you can say standard of living in Chhattisgarh, village XYZ, where the mortality rate is 2%, we are going to bring it down to 1.8%.
I just want to add here also, because sometimes it might be subjective also. I'll tell you a study, that evaluation that I did for a project in Bangladesh. They were looking at people from sex work moving into a livelihood sort of space. And for that organization, when we did the most significant change, it was an eye-opener for me also in that sense. We always look at that they move into the livelihood and there'll be some things that would change in their space, and they will get into livelihood. Interestingly, when we ask the sex workers to tell us what is it that will define their change, they said the way the person does her body language.
So yeah, fine, good. That's a good indicator. But then what of the body language?
Yeah, but the way they dress, these are
so there should have been a pre-assessment.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that we may not be able to capture them into a quantitative sort of a space, which might come in as a qualitative component, wherein then based on your case studies, we
Mm.
probably will be able to add value there. That's
Yeah.
it, that how do you really define that sort of a space where there are nuance changes that people see?
I agree. I agree. See, this world is not black and white. There are 100 shades of gray. But the thing is that this is where the bridge has to be crossed to the best way possible. Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
suppose
And
yeah, sure,
yeah,
Mr. Venugopal. Yeah.
yeah. So in this instance, typically when we come across these kind of things,
Mm.
we ask the beneficiaries or whosoever to
Mm.
actually rate this on a scale of 1 to 10.
Fair enough. Good
Yeah,
enough. Yeah.
and that becomes a metric because, of course, it is subjective. There's an
Yeah.
element of
No, but
subjectiveness, but
still,
it
there
is,
is a Likert scale. You still have brought in a certain amount of
yeah,
accountability. It's a
right,
self-reported difference that has happened. But
right.
so when you're looking at going into the social stock exchange, this is something that you must. It's a cornerstone of the data that you're talking about. Like, I mean, Unnati did something very great. Like they started trying this psychometric test wherever available, when you're talking about confidence. What was I before? Understanding what is, I mean, you might be working on confidence. I might be working on communication. We're still in that same boat, but like measuring you on communication and measuring me on confidence, you have to have some assessment. Some assessment will have to come in. There will be nuances. We're talking about culture. We're talking about society. We're talking about individuals. There is a huge variation that will be there. But whatever is right for you is something that, so like for the example Madam gave, the way you look. So yeah, I used to comb my hair once a week, or I used to comb my hair every day. Yes, no, true, false. Likert scale on a scale of 0 to 5. So that is something that you would have to bring onto it. Um, yeah. What else? So this is one of the biggest change that you would have to think of when you're, going into it, the way you communicate. Um, would the group want to know what are the
Yeah,
forms that you have to fill? Is that something that you think will
I
be useful
just
to you?
understand sustainability point from the social stock exchange point of view, like how I would look at sustainability on NGO level is like community is involved, or there would be capacities built, there are structures that are built. So how does the social stock exchange look at sustainability?
Yeah. So I think more than social stock exchange expects you to tell them how you look at sustainability. And sustainability is an important part for you to raise funds, in the sense, see, there'll be some things which the minute a donor walks out, it'll sort of collapse. There are some things which constantly will need support, and that's perfectly okay, as long as you mention it. Now, if you're talking about advanced medical equipments, yeah, no, it's a one-time thing. Like, and the hospital will continue to need that thing. It's not especially a government hospital will not be able to generate it, but that's perfectly okay, as long as you say it. See, the beauty of the social stock exchange is that it lets you give your narrative without telling you, this is a good performance and this is a bad performance. So this is very, very important to understand. Most of the people like I have spoken to in the NGO sector feel that they are doing less because Tata's planted 5 lakh trees, but I have planted 1,000 trees. But no, whatever is relevant and significant to your organization, as long as you can communicate it, you're on the right track. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So I think kindly now discuss the basic forms that we have,
yeah,
both
yeah,
from the perspective of NPO, the self-assessment part, and then
yeah,
how do you, as social impact assessor,
yeah,
go through the process of carrying out assessment?
yeah. So now I'll come on to the forms
Yes.
now. Yeah, just give me a second. I'll pull down those forms and so I'm going to share this. Just give me a minute. Okay. So I'm sharing these forms. My forms, it's not being shared, no?
No, not yet.
Yeah, just a second. I'm going to share now.
Not yet.
Yeah. Share. Yeah. Is that okay now? Can you see the form?
Yes, please, showing it now.
Okay. So there are 3 levels of forms. When I'm talking about 3 levels, I'm talking about 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So 1 has got 2 forms, which is 1A and 1B. And this is again your self-disclosure. Okay. So very simple, very, very simple. And it's all about your organization. So if you, can I enlarge this a bit?
Yes.
Just a second, I'm making it bigger for easier reading. Is it better now? So 1A is all about your disclosures of your organizations, okay? And look at one very important aspect is the governance aspect, because ultimately whatever you do is basically coming from the leadership. So ownership and legal forms, the role of the government body. So this is all about governance, okay? Organizations level potential risks and mitigation. I actually wanted to talk about risks and mitigation, and we're going to keep 5 minutes for that. Yeah. So capacity building and declaration. Every of these forms has got one part of it, which is the declaration, which is what you would be signing off as an NPO. Okay. Number of committees, number of members. So small NGOs who don't have this governance structure need to get these governance structures in place, you know, PAN, Aadhaar, this thing. So there has to be, this basically says that you're taking money for the right cause and, you know, who all are there. In fact, to the effect that the directors, their PAN numbers, and there's something called a related party transaction. So you would also have to disclose who, your family, close family members, to ensure that they are not a vested, they don't have a vested interest in this money, okay? I just want, it's very simple. Either you have it or you don't have it. If you don't have it, you should get these structures in place, okay? It talks about organization level potential risk and investment plan. I have a nice, good slide on the risks and investment. So going to 1.C, all what you will be talking about ND, very simple, very simple. Like I said, either you have it with you or you don't have it with you. If you don't have it with you, you can set this in place and then get on to the social stock exchange. So this is the declaration that you hereby declare that all the information provided in this report. This is not audited. This is something that is a self-declaration, okay? That is your form 1A. I'm coming to form 1B. Okay. So form 1B continues to be a self-disclosure report. Remember, this is self-disclosure. You are the one who's going to be filling everything. This is all about your programs. The first one was all about your organization. This is about your programs. And I'm saying this because you can, in a social stock exchange, you will have to be specific about the programs that you're raising money on. You would have to be extremely clear that I'm raising 100 rupees for XYZ program. Yeah, you might be doing a lot of programs. So this puts it in context that how many programs are you doing, details of the scale of operation, top donors, the top 5 programs that you're doing, you'd have to give a lot of reports on that. Yeah. This is extremely important. The 1B helps you to get the strategic intent and planning. This is the SIP. Okay, what we had discussed earlier, what that whole thing breaks, that impact, outcome and all that, that breaks down into the strategic intent and planning. Look at this approach in impact indicators, relevance and sustainability. Okay, so this is for the programs that your main programs that you're doing. Now, when you're registering, you would be talking about your main 5 programs, but when you're listing, you would have to be specific about the program that you're talking about. Again, statement of compliance. So basically, it's most of it is self-reported in 1A and 1B. But I just wanted to break down this thing. Can you see this? Or is it too small? Look at this, look at the clarity that you'll require. Name of the program which is referred, number of years the program is expected to run from its launch. If the program go on forever, please mention ongoing. Yeah, like what we discussed just now, that some programs they will need help forever. Okay, states. So all this sort of your direct beneficiaries and your indirect beneficiaries, all this basically lays the boundaries of the program that you are going to raise your money for. Yeah. Top 5 donors of the program. Of course, SDG is a linkage. This is extremely important. Link the schemes to the national goods. Why do you think this aspect is given? Why are you expected to link it to the national programs, even though you might not be actually even identifying the national programs? Any feedback on that? Okay, just because we are short of time, I'll just say that. See, this whole social stock exchange came up because of the idea that government alone can't be responsible for all the social development. Yeah. However much the money, while government is the biggest spender on social development, there is a realization that even the private public funds can also be involved. And that is why the tie-up for the government programs. Most of the NPOs basically are not really talking about contributing to the national development indicators, but I think that's going to be an obvious thing. So scale of operations, number of employees, 1A and 1B is all about you. You are going to be self-declaring on all these things. Is there any particular item here that you would want to discuss? Because this is fairly simple. Any suggestions? Anything that you want to particularly discuss on this?
No, this is quite simple.
It's quite simple, yeah. Okay, so let's come to the more interesting, more challenging part. This is the one which takes a lot of effort. Yeah, this is 2.1. So 2.1 has 3 sections. Okay, that's section A, to be filled by the social enterprise. Section B, which is again to be filled by the social enterprise. And section C is basically if you're listed, you would need, this would be something that you would fill and share with the impact assessment agency. Yeah, but if you're registered, this is also something that you can self-declare. You can do your own assessment and self-declare it. So again, 2A and 2B are quite a bit of a reflection of 1A and 1B. I mean, they're heavily linked. In what you would have given in 1B is what you would basically pick out to be filled in 2B. Okay, so look at what all is there. Stated overall outcome and overall outcome KPIs. This is where if you don't have your SIP, which is a solution implementation plan, you will not be able to fill this. So you have to get your and what is this? I'll just go to 5.1. See how much detail you need to start getting in here. Okay, look at this. Solution implementation. Has the solution implementation plan considered the guidance? Yes. If yes, you give the reference page to the SIP. So SIP is a document that comes, that has something that you have, like I told you, the leadership, the people, internal discussion, what is your impact, what is your thing. That document, the SIP document is something that's one of the first things that you'll have to get ready. And that's where the most effort goes. But once you get your SIP ready, this filling the forms is a cakewalk. There's really nothing much in the forms, yeah? The solution implementation plan is something that you have to get ready. Has timelines-based KPIs for outcome, output, and activities been delineated in clear qualitative and quantitative terms? Like, so you can't just say, I'm improving the standard of living, okay? The timelines, basically what? If you're talking about standard of living, if you're saying, I'm raising the average saving of these 300 women from 500 to 1,000 rupees. The first year, I'm talking only about 100 hours of classes. Second year, I'm talking about giving them a self-help group participation, increasing the participation. And third year is when I'm seeing the increases thing. So timeline-based KPIs for outcome and outgo has to be clearly, qualitatively, and quantitatively defined. And that's what is the whole art of the skill of getting ready, your solution implementation plan, okay? And see, parameters of reach, depth, and inclusion. Are each of these KPIs verifiable? Like what Madam said, some of them may be, and some of them are not, but you have to be pretty clear on that. Yeah, have the means of verification worked out in clear terms for each KPIs. Yeah, has stakeholder been mapped clearly for consultation and feedback? Okay, so you have a KPI, but who are you going to ask? Are you as an assessor going to decide, or you as a program planner have decided who your stakeholders are? Yeah, see again, guiding the document that we discussed just now. So once you get that document right, you will be able to make the solution implementation plan. And based on the solution implementation plan, you would be able to fill 2.1. 2.1 without SIP cannot be filled. What is the baseline status? Performance, stated overall outcome, and KPIs. And this is where it gets deeper and deeper into the KPIs. Look at this, annual program and outcome KPIs. Why annual program? Because Social Stock Exchange requires you to give an annual report, okay? So annual progress in this in KPI applicable at different outcome levels for the year reported on. They go even to that level of intermediate outcome and the final outcome. So what they mean is the final outcome might be at the end of 3 years, but at the end of every 1 year, you might have an intermediate outcome. That clarity needs to come in. Okay. Look at how easy they make it to report. You might have an answer for this, you might not have it. So what could not be accomplished? So it's perfectly okay, but why? Yeah, any unintended this thing. So there's no good and bad. It's an account of the status of your project. Again, progress of activity. So we were talking about outcomes here. Now we started with impact. Then we come to outcome, breaking it down for each outcome. I've broken it down for further activities. Yeah, activity 1, activity 2. And maybe you don't have 3 activities. Maybe you don't have 3 outcomes. You could have 2 outcomes. That's perfectly okay. But you need, at least you as a person applying for it will have to have a clarity on that. Cumulative deviation in the output KPI under each outcome KPI of the previous years before. So how much did you reach? How much did you not? By how much? Maybe you can talk about it in percentages. You can talk about it in numbers. But basically, maybe you've reached 100% of it. So that's okay. So accumulative KPIs. Remember that this is starting of this social stock exchange. There are many of these things that you might not have, and it's perfectly okay to say not available or not applicable. Convergence is one thing that we struggled with quite a bit to understand what they mean by this. But I think convergence is an acknowledgement that not all the achievements of your program are only because of your program. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, there's so many other factors which are, making your program a success, or there might be other factors which is making your program a failure. So this is about acknowledging that, okay? Convergence and contribution of the report. And they describe it. Past performance, risks of risks and unintended. Okay, so can you tell me why is risk even coming into it? As NPOs, have you talked about risk?
Yes. We have always talked about risk under the log frame. Risk and assumption are part of the whole thing.
Okay. Does that hold good for everybody?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So here, that's great to hear, because risk is a big part, a very huge part of the documentation that you will be filling, even for filling up your, if you're going to raise funds in the social stock exchange, risk is a huge aspect of the forms that you will have to do. And I mean, I have a slide on risk. Let's see if we have time for that. Yeah, describe any potential unintended report on stakeholder consultation. So we do a lot of programs, we take a lot of surveys, but in terms of consultation, you would have to sort of do it formally to say that this is a stakeholder consultation. Reports on sustainability of the intervention made as and visited whether if you have listed. Okay. Social impact assessment for knowledge management. This is there is a huge fund which is there with the SSE for a lot of training on social stock exchange. This basically refers to that. Again, these things will come for the next years. Look at all these evidences. Yeah. So this is your 2.B. Now let's come to the most challenging of them, which is 2.3. I'm sorry, which is 2.1. We did 1A, 1B now. Okay. No, which one was this? This is 2.1. Yeah. So we did 2.1A, we did 2.1B. Now this is where your whole impact assessment aspect kicks in. So 2.1A, 2.1B are quite a bit of a reflection of what you would have written in 1.A and 1.B. Yeah, that's something that you get 1.A and 1.B right, you get 2.1 and 2.B right. Now comes the assessment part of it. This is something that you would be filling if you have not listed, if you're registered. Okay. So this is where it starts. Comment on the alignment of the SIP with the guiding thing. So we basically map the SIP of the organization we audited along with these things. And we basically said, this is very aligned and this could be areas of improvement. This is because the company we audited was listed. So we sort of used this document to make our impact assessment report. Key performance indicator. See, now it's asking us to comment on the appropriateness. So then, yeah. So it depends. The appropriateness will be how well you as an NPO have filled 1.A, 1.B, 2.1, 2.B. Yeah, because now 2.C is all about comment on the document that you're going to submit, what is the document that you're going to submit? You're going to submit SIP. That's the foundational document. And then you're going to, share 1.A, 1.B, 2.1, 2.B. Those are the documents that you're going to share. The quality, the robustness of the data in 1.A, 1.B is commented on in 2.1C. Okay, key performance. Comment on the appropriateness of the thing. So if your document, if your SIP and 1 and 2 is not clear, this will start getting impact. The impact assessment will get impacted. Okay, performance. Okay, the performance outcome. So an auditor will be giving a narrative report on the degree to which the program project is living up to its. How do we as auditors give a narrative report? We haven't gone out in the field. We haven't worked on this program for the last 2 years like the way you have. So how do we give a narrative report? Is basically by analyzing a lot of your documents, your SIP, your reports, and talking to a few stakeholders. Yeah. Analysis and interpretation of the outputs, analysis and interpretation of the outcomes. So you saw there were KPIs which were there in outcome, output, activities, and all that. So that becomes extremely important for us to look at all these things. This should be in reference to the baseline and KPI narratives kept in the FFRD. So there will be a little bit of a change in these documents because 2.1C was considered the impact assessment report, but they later came up with another document called 3.1, which I'll just go to now. So stakeholder feedback. So
what is the full form of double FRD?
Full and final what's that? Fundraising document.
Final
FRD is
fundraising
fundraising document.
F before that.
Final fundraising document.
Final
document. Okay.
Okay. Contribution. So if you see 2.1C is a reflection of all, it basically asks you to comment on all what you have filled in 2.1A and 2.1B. Yeah. So this is what, if you are, I mean, this is something that the NPO will have to fill it themselves now by the latest this thing that we've got. And I just want to get down 3.1. Just give me a minute. I'm just trying to find the latest 3.1 that has come in. Is my thing being shared? No, no? So the latest has been a document called 3.1.
Perfect.
Dr. Gupta, do you have it readily available? The 3.1?
No, I don't have it right now.
Yeah, just a second.
Ma'am, even on NSE website, I'm looking for that document, but I'm not able to.
Yeah, that is still in progress. That's still in progress. And I think what we can talk about is what we can do is we'll wait for the SAB to share it because I think it's still very confidential. But there is another document which is 3.1. Okay, till now we have been exposed to 2.1, and there is a new document which will be announced very shortly, and I think we'll wait for that. And that is document 3.1. That's a document which is basically what we as social auditors will sign off. There are two parts in that document. The first part of the document is a declaration by the social auditors. The second part of the document is an annexure, okay, which details out the entire program, entire details of the programs like in 2.1C. Yeah. So that is the one that goes with the signing. Yeah, Ramesh ji? I think,
Ramesh. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 3.1 which is signed and given by you is there on our website under tab SSC. In case they want to see that document, it is available there.
Yeah. So I would recommend that all the NPOs must visit Unnati's website and look at that thing. That's what ultimately when you cull out 1.A, 1.B, 2.1, 2.B, 2.C, you cull out the whole thing to get that impact assessment report, which is 3.1, which is the only document which the external auditor will be basically giving you based on the documents that you have submitted. So Unnati has it on their website. So I think I'd recommend uh, all the NPOs to actually visit it. And Ramesh has been a pioneer in this thing and he has shared all the learnings on his website. You please must visit it and go through it at your leisure.
Yes, has it for the last 12, 13 years, I think. Am I right?
What?
All his reports.
Yeah, and that's the confidence you have when you're absolutely accountable and transparent. No? You have the confidence to put it in a public domain. And again, see, the whole thing about SEBI's thing about all these forms and rules is that it will get into a public domain. So you'll have to the self-declaration is an act of great responsibility. And I always encourage that, that you just say what you are, at which state you are. You don't have to change the whole world at one go. So that was it from my side. I have one more thing. Dr. Gupta, do we have time
Yes,
to
please,
discuss
10
risk?
minutes more. Please, you have 10 minutes more,
Okay.
whatever you want to share.
Yeah. Are there any specific questions that the group wants to discuss? Because we have Ramesh ji, we have Gupta ji here, and we can share our experience. Is there any specific pain point that you want to discuss?
I have certain questions that have come up from the NGOs, but it's not related to reporting.
No, let's focus on reporting.
Let's focus on reporting.
Let's focus on these forms.
I have questions that have come up.
Yeah, maybe on an offline we can take it out. What about the larger group? I see that we have a lot of NPOs here. I would expect a few more questions on these forms.
Ma'am, regarding this form 2.1, this form is to be filed only by those NGOs who have registered and have raised funds through SSC, right? So when you were talking about that part, section C, to be filed by assessors for facilitating assessment, right?
Yeah,
So
there's a bit of a catch there, Kavita.
Yeah.
So I think the next update from SEBI. Prabhakar, you wanted to ask something?
Yes, madam. 1 second. What I wanted to ask is for the people from the non-social sector background, how do we further pursue our career, madam?
Yeah. As per SEBI guidelines, someone who is a graduate and he has 6 years or more experience in the development sector, and someone who is a postgraduate with at least 3 years experience in the development sector is eligible to take the NISM social auditor's exam and qualify and become a social auditor.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So coming back to Kavita's question about, it says provided to the assessor and all that. I think there is a little bit of a gray area there. And I think the next round of forms that will come out will clarify that, because 3.1, which is the impact assessment report, which is the template for the impact assessment report, is technically speaking still to be announced by SEBI. So I think they're going through the next round of cleanup. So Kavita, to answer your question, if you're a registered entity on social stock exchange, you would have to fill it yourself. Yeah, it's a self-declaration. There might be a little bit of a change in the language there. But if you're a listed organization, you will have one more form, which is 3.1, which is going to be signed by an external auditor.
Okay, thank you.
Can I chip in?
Sure, please.
Yeah, to the 2.C, when there is a mention of the assessor, what it means is once your 3.1 comes in, right? You match whether the 2.C and the assessor's things are similar, and then you submit it as your own also your own declaration, and that is also matched by the 3.1. So that is where the whole thing aspect comes in.
Jagannath Sharmila, there's one question. It says, otherwise we can't list on the stock exchange. Do you know what can you be more clear as to what your question is?
Good evening, madam.
Good evening.
You were mentioning about the list of programs that should align with that programs of the national programs.
No, not really. What I meant was, no, your list, see, all the
objective should align with the national programs, no?
So there are 2-3 things here.
For listing, for fundraising. Otherwise, we cannot raise funds on the social stock exchange.
No, actually, even for the registration on social stock exchange, there are certain criteria which have been prescribed by SEBI and the social stock exchanges. One of the criteria is that the NPO must be engaged in eligible activities.
Yes,
and there are 16 eligible activities which SEBI has indicated, which are almost on the same lines as sustainable development goals. But you need to check out whether your NPO is actually involved and engaged in one of those 16 eligible activities. Only then you'll be allowed to register and subsequently raise funds on the social stock exchange through listing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So at that point of time, madam has raised the question. So answering that question, it was the first.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Gupta brought in a very important thing that I hadn't referred to, is what's the social audit standards.
Yes.
Okay. It has 16 titles, and it's a beautiful document which actually tells you what are your impact parameters, what are the evaluation parameters, who are your stakeholders, what is the type of questions that you have. And so it's available. I mean, I think Dr. Gupta can share it.
It's available on the website of saoicmai.in. I'll just put it in the chat box. Anyone of you can refer to that.
Yeah, that is something that you must go through it. It's called Social Audit Standards. It's available on ICMAI SAO website. Dr. Gupta has shared the.
I put it down there.
Yeah. Please go through it. Yeah.
For interpreter.
Sorry.
I want to raise a question to Dr. Gupta that I am the social impact assessor. I have also registered in the ICMI. I am post economic practice. I have before 1 month, I have attached to the Officer Foundation Trust, who is also registered as a social impact entity in the ICMI. The office is in Bhubaneswar. His office in Bangalore. So this is the one type of branches of social entity. Is this to be registered as a branch to this foundation trust and informed to the ICMI?
No, they have not so far. No, not really. Yeah.
No, is it required? Mandatory?
No, not required. Not required. You can have an office anywhere across India, and you can be operating from somewhere else. That's not an issue at all.
Not required to inform to the ICMI that the branches that is
no, not necessarily. We are only concerned with the corporate office or the controlling administrative office where it is located, but the branches we don't really want to have the information.
That is the Officer Foundation entity that is registered in the ICMI. The list is not attached to the ICMI social auditor organizations. The entity.
Sir, we do check the organization structure, location, where the organization is registered, what kind of organization structure the entity has, but number of branches, number of offices, we don't go into those kind of things.
But as per the post accounting practice, that is statutory point of view, any branches is opened and any member of the cost accounting that branches responsible, it has to be intimated to the ICMI. Same type of formula should be implemented.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We can
That's a good suggestion. We can give recommendation to SEBI to issue guidelines with that regard. We'll take it up, sir. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. I'm Aarti Nigam. Sir, I request any SOA to have a database of the social impact assessor and the social impact entity so that the NPOs could find where to, I mean, which city a person, a perfect professional is located. They cannot find, I think, the from where to contact and get them address from the for the professionals.
Sure, madam. We have over 165 social audit members as of now in ICMEI SEO. The list is uploaded on the website of the company. And we have also registered, as of now, 5 social impact assessment forms. There are few applications which are in the pipeline, but as of now, we have 5 social impact assessment forms which are registered with us.
For the benefit of NGOs, I have put the link.
Yeah, that's the website of ICMEI SEO, and which also provides you the list of the members that we have, including details of their location citywide.
I have a question. Based on the discussions that have details that you have shared, we see that Form 2.1 A and B is kind of self-reported on the performance of the organization. Now, as an assessor, we 2.C will just try to validate what has been said or self-reported based on the basic documentation, or that self-reported has to be kind of be a third-party evaluation to make sure that there is an objectivity in what has been reported in the self-reported part of 2.1 A and B. Is my question clear?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'll tell you what we did. So when we were Blue Sky was interacting with Unnati for this, we sort of filled up 2.1 based on what Unnati gave us. Yeah. It was a at that time, there was no clarity on a 3.1. The document 3.1 was not clear. So we had filled it up based on what do you call, based on 1.A, 1.B, 2.1, 2.B. But as a part of our assessment, we also asked for a lot of other documents. So nothing that they had written was taken at face value. We asked for evidence for everything. And that is why it was an assessment.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
So to answer your question, Vatsala, it's not, they just submitted 1.A, 1.B, and when we started doing the impact assessment report, everything that they had written in 1.A and 1.B had to be evidenced. 2.1, 2.B had to be evidenced.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Do we have a sample of a filled-in report? Or
You can look at Unnati, go to the Unnati website.
I went to Unnati, I'm not able to find it. I'm finding FCRA reports.
No, no, no. Under SSC, there's a tab SSC. The last tab, if you see collaboration, there are 2. SSC is there.
I'm not able to find, that's why I asked. I don't know where.
Can you go to the website, copy it and send it to
Because it says transparency announcements, contact us, latest updates. Is it?
Ma'am, I have downloaded the forms. I'll share with you.
Yeah.
No, she's checking out the report, filled out report.
I'm looking out for the filled out report.
No, filled out report is there in the SSC, under the SSC.
Not, okay, I'm not. Is it a separate website?
No, no, Unnati BLR, unnatiblr.org. You go to
Okay. Oh yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
yeah.
You.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Where's the report?
Are there any other questions?
Yeah.
For discussion?
No, I think we can close this session. Thank you so much, Jyotsna Madam, for sparing your time and sharing valuable practical insights with regard to reporting architecture and compliance required for registered and listed NPOs. This was just kind of a curtain raiser session. Yesterday, we had a session with Mr. Ramesh Swami from Unnati from the perspective of NPOs, how they are taking up the whole process of reporting and compliances. And today, we had a practitioner. We're going to follow it up with a 4-day, 12-hour boot camp. We're going to announce that today evening, which is going to be for social impact assessors and also for the NPOs, how to comply with the reporting requirements, because stock exchanges are quite concerned about the situation prevailing in the marketplace as of now. Not many NPOs have complied with their deadline of 31st January. So we have been advised to conduct a kind of a workshop, hands-on practical boot camp kind of thing, telling people, advising people how to fill up each particular column of the various forms which are there. And that's we are going to run from 7th of February till 11th of February, 11:30 to 1:30 every day. So total about 12 hours of inputs with people like Jyotsna Madam, who are practitioners in the social impact assessment domain, and also people like Mr. Ramesh Swami from the other side, from the NPO side, who are going to bridge the gap and bridge the knowledge gap which exists possibly in the marketplace today. Just await our flyer. It will reach you by today evening. And I would request you, in case you are interested to build your capacity in this particular section or comply with the requirements of stock exchange being an NPO, I would request you to kindly join the program and take the benefit. And thank you so much for all of you for joining in this program on this afternoon. Thank you so much, the speaker of the day, Madam Jyotsna.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. It was lovely. And I wish you all good luck. You must get onto the SSC. It's just it just makes your work so much stronger. And we are always there to support you for anything. Give a call and we'll. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to check your